Hey guys, tonight we slip into shadows, beneath creaking carts and crooked roofs, where every step feels like a gamble, and every breath might be your last as a free person. Tonight, we're not nobility or knights or charming merchants with wine-stained teeth. Tonight, you're something far more dangerous, far more desperate. You're a medieval thief. You wake before dawn, not to tend fields or pray at matins, but because your stomach is gnawing at itself and the bread you had yesterday was stolen and stale. Your feet are cold, your shoes are more whole than leather, and you've already been chased out of 2 towns this month. There's a bruise on your shoulder from a night sleeping beside barrels, and you're pretty sure the alley rats are smarter than you. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, where in the world are you listening from tonight, and what time is it? Drop your location and your local time in the comments so we can see how far this dusty little den of storytelling reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You move quietly through the half-lit streets, stepping over puddles that are hopefully just water, ducking behind carts, keeping low. The city is waking up, blacksmiths stoking fires, chickens objecting loudly to existence, and someone yelling at someone else about spilled milk. You want to disappear. Being a thief isn't glamorous. It's not clever little heists or dashing escapes. It's hunger and desperation and knowing that most people would rather see you flogged than fed. You didn't grow up dreaming of this. But then again, nobody dreams about starvation either. You weren't born into it, but you slipped into it. When your father died in a roofing accident and your mother had too many mouths to feed and not enough hands to help. Work was scarce. Kindness was scarcer. And so one day, you grabbed a pie cooling on a window ledge. You ran, and you got away. That rush hasn't quite left you since. But neither has the fear. Medieval laws did not go easy on thieves. Punishments ranged from public humiliation to disfigurement to hanging. And that's just for second offenses. In some regions, the first conviction meant you were branded, literally. A hot iron to the hand, or sometimes the face, marking you for life. You rub your palms at the thought. Still clean. For now, there's a fringe belief in your town that a thief can escape detection if they carry a pebble from a bishop's grave in their pocket. You have 3. 2 of them are probably just ordinary stones. But hope is hope. You duck into a covered alley and eat the crust of bread you managed to swipe yesterday. It's hard enough to break a tooth, but you chew it slowly, carefully, like it's some nobleman's feast. Historians still argue whether most medieval thieves were hardened criminals or simply poor folks pushed past their limit. You know where you stand. You lean against the damp wall, watching a baker's boy push a cart too big for his arms. He stops to scratch his ankle. The bread is exposed. Steam rises. Your fingers twitch. You know it's stupid. But you're starving. And there's a loaf, barely guarded, no one around. You move without thinking. You reach the cart in 2 careful steps, 1 breath, and a hope that today's not the day your luck runs dry. Your hand darts out, fingers brushing the warm crust of a half loaf, and you're halfway to turning when, oi! It's not the boy. It's his mother, and she's holding a rolling pin like a knight wields a sword. You bolt. Your foot catches the edge of a cobblestone, and you tumble sideways into a pile of hay that smells very much like it used to be horse. The bread flies from your hand. You scramble after it, but the boy grabs it first, clutching it like it's royal treasure. You again, the woman yells. Filthy-handed rat. Someone else laughs. Someone else shouts. The noise swells. This is the worst part. Not getting caught, but getting noticed. Because in a medieval town, shame travels faster than rats, and both tend to find you in the end. You run. Again. That's what you're best at. Down a narrow lane, across a muddy patch that used to be a pig pen, over a low wall that tears your tunic. You don't stop until you're panting behind a smokehouse, the air thick with fish and your own regret. This was supposed to be easy. Just one loaf, one moment, one warm bite. You sit back against the wall and listen to the town's heartbeat return to normal. No bells, no chasing feet, just your stomach growling in betrayal. In medieval Europe, stealing food, even something as small as a loaf of bread, could carry severe consequences. Fines, whippings, even death, depending on how many times you'd been caught and who you stole from. The law rarely cared why you stole, just that you did. And in towns like yours, everyone's watching, not because they're cruel, though many are, but because they're hungry too. A stolen loaf means less to go around. Even if it's not their loaf, it's someone's. And someone's might be their cousin. There's a fringe superstition that bread stolen on a holy day brings a curse of endless hunger. You don't believe in curses, but you haven't felt full in a long time. You check your pouch, 2 copper pieces and a pebble from the churchyard. Not much of a fortune, unless you're trading in disappointment. Historians still argue whether most thieves were solitary or worked in groups. You've seen both. You tried running with a crew once, 3 boys from the docks who liked knives more than bread, and left you behind the first time anything got real. You limped for days. So now you're alone again, bruised, muddy, and empty-handed. You peek back toward the market. The baker's boy is gone. The cart's been moved, but the humiliation lingers like smoke. You head toward the narrow lanes of the poorer quarter, where the windows are cracked and the dogs bark without looking. Maybe someone dropped a turnip. Maybe there's a fish head left behind a stall. You've eaten worse. You pass a man sleeping against a wall. His shoes are gone. His breath fogs in the air. You don't know if he's drunk or dead. You don't stop to check. There's no time for sympathy when you're this close to collapse. The wind picks up. You pull your cloak tighter, thin, torn, but still yours. You remind yourself you're still breathing. Still unbranded. Still free. But for how long? Tomorrow, you'll try again. You always do. Your luck holds for a few more hours, barely. You dodge a suspicious merchant, slip past a couple of nosy nuns, and manage to snag a shriveled pear someone forgot behind a stall. It tastes like wood and regret, but you eat it anyway, juice dribbling down your chin. That's when you hear the whistle. Not a song, not a catcall. A warning. You freeze behind a stack of firewood, heart pounding in your ears. Then you hear it again, short, sharp, followed by the unmistakable jingle of mail armor and heavy leather boots. Town watch. Your muscles scream to move, but your brain insists, wait. You peek around the corner, and there he is. The watchman. Wide-shouldered, flat-faced, eyes like boiled cabbage, and beside him, his dog. The worst part isn't that it's a dog. It's that dog, Bran. A shaggy beast that seems to smell fear through walls and across decades. You don't know what kind of breed he is, probably part demon, but he's got a nose that could sniff out lies and a bark that makes your spine reconsider its alignment. You saw Bran tackle a man once for hiding a stolen ring under his tongue. Somehow, the dog knew. No one's ever figured out how. Maybe he just hates criminals. Maybe he's a former saint. Maybe he's smarter than half the town. Whatever he is, he's headed straight for your alley. You don't run yet. Running too soon is like shouting, "I'm guilty," from a rooftop. Instead, you press yourself flat, quiet, invisible. Or so you hope. Bran sniffs. Your fingers curl around a loose stone. The watchman mutters something about the stink of thieves. You consider prayer, not because you're pious, just because you've run out of options. You whisper the same useless words you've used a dozen times. Not today, not me, not this time. There's a fringe belief among pickpockets that if you spit on your shoes before a chase, your steps won't be heard. You've done it. You'd spit on your own shadow if it gave you a second's edge. The boots come closer. Bran's claws click louder. Your muscles tighten. And then, blessed noise. A shout from the next street. Someone's yelling about a fight near the alehouse. Another whistle. The watchman curses. Bran huffs, and just like that, they're gone. You collapse into yourself, gasping like you ran a mile, though you haven't moved an inch. Historians still argue whether medieval watchmen were effective guardians or just decorative threats. From where you're crouching, it depends entirely on their dog. You wait another 10 minutes before slinking back into the alleys. Your nerves are shredded, your pair long gone, and your hands still tremble. But you're not in chains. You're not bleeding. You count it as a win. You pass a wall covered in crude charcoal drawings, eyes, hands, a woman with a bird head. Some believe these marks were made by thieves to warn each other. Others say it's just bored children with nothing better to do. But you pause and mark a tiny X beside a crooked line. Just in case. You slip into a space between two buildings barely wide enough to breathe. Here, you rest, just for a moment. Your heart still skips with every footstep, but no one's looking for you. Not yet. Your fingers twitch with the memory of Bran's growl. Tomorrow, you'll walk a different route. Tonight, you'll sleep with one eye open. You dream of ropes, not the useful kind for climbing or tying sacks. No, these ropes creak. These ropes tighten. And in your dream, they always lead up, out of view, toward a wooden beam and silence. You wake in a cold sweat, curled against a damp stone wall, heart jackhammering inside your ribs. It's not the cold that shook you, it's memory. Because punishment for theft isn't just a threat in your world. It's a fact. A brutal, unavoidable fact, as common as mud and just as hard to wash off. You remember Wilfred. He was older than you, but not by much, maybe 17. A lean boy with eyes too big for his face, always nervous, always scratching at the seam of his tunic. He got caught stealing a belt from the tanner's stall. Not a fancy belt, just a worn strip of leather with a wooden buckle. He said he needed it to keep his trousers up. They didn't care. They took 3 fingers from his right hand. Not instantly, not neatly. They tied him to the public whipping post and made a whole show of it. Crowd gathered, priest mumbling, official charges read aloud in a tone so smug it made your teeth ache. They used a chisel. You didn't watch the whole thing, but you heard it. And you never forgot the sound Wilfred made. Not a scream. Just this croaking gasp. Like all the air and hope had been dragged out of him with the fingers. Now he begs near the abbey gates, his hands wrapped in cloth most days, and he doesn't meet your eyes. You leave coins when you can. Not out of guilt, out of recognition. That could have been you. Might still be. There's a fringe belief that thieves with missing limbs become invisible to demons, that each lost piece protects the rest of them. You wonder if Wilfred would agree. Punishments varied by region and ruler, but the goal was the same. Make it hurt. Steal once? You might get a public flogging. Twice? Branding. Thrice? Hanging. Or worse. Some towns used iron cages hung from poles where the sun and birds took their time. Historians still argue whether such punishments were truly about justice or just grotesque public theater meant to scare the rest of you straight. Either way, they worked. Fear works. You run your fingers across your own knuckles, counting them. Still 10. But for how long? You rise, stiff, hungry, and haunted. Your dreams of ropes hang behind your eyes like smoke. You try to shake it off, pretend it's just another morning, another damp boot, another bruised apple, another day you haven't been caught. But the fear clings to you. It becomes part of your gait, your breathing, your decisions. Today you won't steal. That's what you tell yourself. You'll lie low. Let the bruises on your pride fade. Let the town forget your face, if it ever knew it. But as the sun rises over crooked chimneys and the smell of baking bread seeps into your skull, that promise cracks like old wood. Because you're still hungry, and you still have 10 fingers. You drift toward the market like smoke, unseen if you move just right, eyes down, pace even. The cobblestones are slick with fish water and spilled ale, and your feet already ache, but you press on. It's market day, and that means opportunity and risk. The square is a blur of noise and color, red apples, yellow onions, blue cloth, gray geese. Everyone's shouting. Everyone's moving. If you squint, it almost feels like celebration. But you know better. It's a battlefield. And you're not wearing armor. You stick to the fringes at first. Watch. There's a rhythm to the place, like waves. The richest folk sweep through early, loud and self-important. Then come the housewives and servants, bargaining with confidence and smirks. Then the poor. Then, eventually, the pickpockets. You slip into the flow, acting like you belong. Maybe you're someone's cousin. Maybe you're fetching turnips. Maybe you're just tired. You blend. That's the trick. Move too confidently, and they'll clock you. Move too carefully, and they'll really clock you. Your target appears in the form of a distracted wool merchant with a bulging purse and a habit of talking with both hands. He gestures wildly as he rants about sheep prices, and for a moment, just a moment, he turns from his stall. You slide in. Your fingers brush leather. You almost have it, but your foot squelches directly into something that was definitely alive this morning. You flinch. The merchant turns. Hey, you're already gone, weaving between a fishmonger and a barrel of pickled eggs, heart hammering. You don't stop running until your knees give out behind the blacksmith's shed. Empty-handed. Again, you flop onto a pile of old straw and curse the market's new layout. Who puts geese that close to a garlic stand? Historians still argue whether medieval markets encouraged thievery by being so crowded, or discouraged it by being so public. From where you're panting right now, the answer is yes. There's a fringe practice among some thieves, tying a rabbit's foot to your belt for market luck. You had one once, but it got chewed by a dog. Or maybe it ran off. Either way, it didn't work. You wait a while. Then you limp back toward the crowd, deciding maybe today's about scavenging, not stealing. You hover near a vegetable stand, pretending to admire the onions. Your stomach growls. A boy nearby drops a small potato. He doesn't notice. You do. You snatch it up and vanish like a ghost. It's not heroic. It's not elegant. But it's something. You bite into the raw potato behind a barrel. It's cold, hard, and a little earthy. Delicious, because it means one more hour where you're not starving. One more step between you and ropes or branding irons. One more win in a game designed for you to lose. A goose honks nearby, and you freeze. But it waddles past without judgment. You exhale. Chew. Swallow. Survive. You hear them before you see them. The clang of the stocks being cleaned. A bucket sloshes. Someone curses. The iron hinges groan. It's all part of the morning ritual. Sweep the square, beat the rugs, prep the punishments. You creep close enough to watch from behind a crooked beam. The stocks sit in the town's center like a warning in wood. 2 holes for arms, 1 for the neck, all splintered and worn smooth by time and skin. Some genius once carved a little face into the top beam, smiling mockingly. It never makes you smile. Most folks think of the stocks as medieval slapstick. People imagine rotten tomatoes and crowd laughter and harmless public embarrassment. But you've seen what actually gets thrown. And it's not fruit. Mud? Rocks? Pig dung? Whatever's available and painful. And that's if the crowd's in a good mood. You once watched a woman have her nose broken by a blacksmith's apprentice who thought she stole his sister's ribbon. She didn't. He got a stern talking to. She got 3 days of fever. You step back from the edge of the beam and wipe your palms on your tunic. They always sweat when you think of the stocks. They're the mild option after all. Better stocks than the gallows. Better bruises than branding. But that's not really saying much. There's a fringe superstition that says if you spit on the post before being locked in, you'll only suffer half the pain. You've seen people do it. You've never asked if it helped. Historians still argue whether the use of stocks genuinely reduced crime, or just gave townsfolk an outlet for their boredom and cruelty. From where you're standing, it feels like both. The man setting up the square is old and bent, muttering to himself as he straightens the bench near the pillory. You watch him toss a bundle of moldy turnips into a nearby pile. They're too far gone to sell, but just right for throwing. You retreat before he sees you. Later, you pass by the stocks again and see them filled. 2 boys this time, no older than you. One for stealing eggs, the other for disrupting church peace, whatever that means. Their eyes are red, not from tears, from fear. You know the look. They'll sit there all day, heads bent, arms locked, while others point and whisper and jeer. You think about tossing them a crust, but you have no crust, just guilt, and your own skin to protect. You don't hang around. You've learned that pity is a dangerous luxury. It slows your feet and sharpens your silhouette. If the guards see you looking too long, they'll start wondering what you're guilty of. So you move on, faster now. Past the tanners, where the stench is bad enough to make you gag. Past the shoemaker's boy, who glares like he remembers you trying to steal a heel once. You make it to the alley behind the inn. There, you sit and breathe and try not to imagine your own face peering out from the stocks, lips split, head bowed, with no one daring to meet your eyes. Maybe tomorrow you'll be braver. Maybe not. You duck into the chapel, because it's the only place in town where people are supposed to be quiet. And today, you need quiet. Your nerves are shot, your stomach's empty again, and the morning's parade of public humiliation has your heart thudding like a war drum. The chapel is small. Wooden beams overhead, cracked stone floor beneath, and a candlelit stillness that always feels almost safe. You sit near the back, out of the way, close to the wall where the shadows gather. For a moment, you breathe. No one yells. No one throws anything. No dogs sniff at you like your lunch. Just the faint scent of wax and old incense. You let your shoulders drop a little. There's a fringe belief that stepping into holy ground wipes away your sins. Temporarily, at least. Like holding your breath underwater. You've never been sure if that's real, but it feels nice to pretend. You watch the priest shuffle between pews, rearranging hymn scrolls. He's an older man with more patience than most, and you suspect he's seen you slip in before. He never says anything. Maybe he believes in second chances, or maybe he's just tired. You stare at the altar. Not because you're praying, just because it helps to have something to focus on that isn't fear. Outside, the world's still dangerous, but in here, it feels different. Softer. You hear a cough. A woman nearby wipes her eyes. A child lights a votive candle with reverent care. You wonder what they're praying for. Then you wonder if anyone ever prays for you. You've thought about confessing once or twice, just blurting it all out. Yes, I stole bread. Yes, I took apples. Yes, I've lied, and run, and hidden. But what would that do? Get you forgiveness, or get you reported? Historians still argue whether churches were truly sanctuaries for the desperate, or whether that idea was more myth than mercy. Legally, some offered right of sanctuary, a temporary protection from arrest if you clung to the altar. But not every guard honored it. Not every priest defended it. You shift uneasy. You've heard stories of thieves dragged out from chapels, mid-prayer, robes torn, teeth knocked loose. Not exactly divine justice. Still, some tried. Some even escaped. You lean your head against the wood behind you and close your eyes. You imagine what it would be like to stop running. To just stay here, be invisible, safe, cared for. Then someone walks in. The door creaks. You jolt. It's not a guard, just an old woman, hunched and muttering about lost keys. But your nerves don't care. You're up, moving again, leaving through the back exit, already glancing over your shoulder. You wanted sanctuary. What you got was a moment. And even that was more than most. As the chapel fades behind you, you realize something. You're not a monster. You're not proud. But you're also not alone. People have always taken refuge in sacred spaces, some in search of forgiveness, others just for a breath. You were there for the latter, and now you're back on the streets, sins intact. But at least your soul got to sit down. You know better than to trust most people. But today, you're out of options, and coin, and luck. So you go to him. The fence. He doesn't have a name, or if he does, he's forgotten it. Everyone just calls him the man at the bridge, though technically, he's more of a man under the bridge, living in a lean-to made from boat planks and bad decisions. You duck beneath the stone archway, shoes slipping on moss, and find him where he always is, squatting near a pile of odds and ends that no respectable person would admit to owning. He sees you and grins, 3 teeth short of charming. Well, if it isn't the broomstick shadow, he rasps, a nickname he gave you for being skinny and always looking like you're about to fall over. You pull out the item. It's not much, just a cracked pewter brooch you found in the mud outside the tavern. Could be junk, could be someone's heirloom. Doesn't matter now. Nice, he says, turning it over. Genuine? Probably not. He doesn't ask where you got it. Fences never do. That's part of the deal. No questions, no names, no loyalty. You hold out your hand. He reaches into his pouch and pulls out onions. 2 of them, slightly bruised. 1 possibly moldy. You stare at him. He shrugs. Money's tight. That's blessing enough you weren't caught. You take them, because refusing would be more humiliating than accepting. You've eaten worse. There's a fringe belief among street thieves that fences curse everything they touch so no one can profit more than they do. Some whisper about fences who hex rings to burn the pockets of greedy buyers. You don't believe that. Not exactly. But you do feel dirty now, in a way even chapel incense couldn't cleanse. Historians still argue whether fences were considered criminals themselves or merely necessary middlemen in economies where theft was constant and predictable. Either way, they existed in every town worth stealing from, and every thief, sooner or later, had to deal with one. You tuck the onions into your cloak. They're heavy. You tell yourself that means full stomach. But all it really means is shame with skins on. The man at the bridge waves you off. Already forgetting you. Already onto the next shadow with stolen goods and empty hopes. You walk away slower than usual. He didn't cheat you. You knew the rate before you came, but it still burns. You think about trying your luck again. Maybe a loaf from the bakery. Maybe something small, fast. Then you hear a familiar voice behind you. Your neighbor's boy. Loud. Too loud. Hey, he just came from under the bridge. You freeze. That kid has eyes like a hawk and zero sense of secrecy. You don't look back. You just run. Because if he tells his mother, and she tells the candle seller, and he tells the constable, then someone will mention you. And if they mention you, you're done. You sprint across 2 lanes, jump over a rotting barrel, and vanish behind the weaver's shop. Panting, clutching your onions, praying the boy was just being nosy, not cruel. You press your back to the wall and listen. No footsteps, no shouting. Not yet. You stay hidden anyway. Because you've learned in your line of work, the quietest moments are when the traps snap shut. You stay tucked behind the weaver's shop for longer than you should. Not because you're safe, but because you're trying to decide whether today is the day everything finally unravels. The onions sit heavy in your pocket, like guilt and breakfast rolled into one. You make a decision. Go home. Not to sleep, not even to rest, just to hide, to wait for the gossip to settle. You keep to the back lanes, stepping over puddles, ducking low past shuttered windows. You know this town like you know your own breath. But you also know how fast a whisper turns into a manhunt. And lately, you've been whispered about a lot. You pass the carpenter's shop, its doors wide open, wood shavings curled like dried petals on the threshold. A woman sweeps the steps and scowls as you walk by. You pass the candle seller's stall. He doesn't scowl. He smiles. Too warmly. You pick up your pace. You're almost to the narrow alley that leads to your bolt hole when someone steps out. Looking for someone? It's the bailiff. You freeze. He's flanked by 2 others. Neither wears a uniform, but they don't need to. Their hands rest on their belts, near cudgels. Their eyes rest squarely on you. You try to act casual. Just walking. He chuckles. Heard you were under the bridge. I like the view. From under a rat? He steps closer. You flinch. Where's the brooch? He asks. You shrug. Didn't find one. Funny, he says, stepping in. Because someone else did. Same one you were seen carrying. There's a pause. You weigh your options. Run? No space. Lie? Already doing it. Confess? Not suicidal. You glance up. There's a loose shutter above the alley. You've used it once before. Risky. But better than bruises. Suddenly, bailiff. A shout from behind. The fishmonger. There's a fight at the river. The bailiff curses under his breath. Always during lunch. He glares at you. This isn't over. Then they're gone. Just like that. You exhale so hard it shakes your ribs. There's a fringe belief that fishmongers have secret power in the town hierarchy, that they know everything and say nothing, unless it benefits them. Maybe that's true. Maybe you owe him one. Maybe he just didn't want a beating to happen near his stall. Historians still argue whether medieval law enforcement actually cared about justice or simply responded to the loudest complaint with the firmest stick. In your experience, the second wins most days. You slink away. Back to the alley. Back through the warped door, into your tiny den of rags and mold. You collapse onto the mat you call a bed. The onions survive the trip. You eat one raw. It makes your eyes water and your belly grumble louder. You eat it anyway. You think of the bailiff's face. He won't forget. Your neighbor's kid won't either. You can't stay here. Maybe a few more days. Maybe not even that. The walls feel closer than usual. The air tighter. Everyone's a snitch. Even if they don't mean to be. Even if they're just curious. Even if they're just kids with loud mouths and good eyesight. You lie back and stare at the ceiling. You can't see stars from here. Just a line of spiderweb stretching between rafters. and the sound of your own breath. Still here, still hiding, still not caught. Yet. You don't sleep much that night. Every sound outside your shutterless window becomes a potential footstep. Every whisper of wind a guard's cloak brushing stone. The candle stub burns out just after midnight, but you keep staring at the darkness like it owes you answers. You've outlasted worse, but something's changed. You're not sure if it's the bailiff's threat or the fishmonger's mercy, but your nerves are shot. Your hands won't stop shaking. By morning you make up your mind. You need to disappear, not forever, just for a while. A week, maybe 2. Long enough for memories to fade and gossip to shift towards someone else. It always does. In a town this small, fresh scandal is never more than a spilled drink away. You pack light. A crust of bread, the last onion, your threadbare cloak, and your 3 smooth pebbles, the ones from the churchyard. You tuck them into your satchel like they're relics, though deep down, you suspect their only power is sentimental. You slip out before dawn. No one sees you leave. You head toward the woods. Not because you like nature, honestly. You hate trees. Too many bugs. Not enough walls. But the forest offers something the town can't right now: space. There's a fringe belief that sleeping in the woods clears a thief's soul. Something about being far from man's law and closer to nature's. You don't buy it. But still, something feels cleaner about crunching leaves underfoot than cobblestones. You find a half-collapsed charcoal burner's hut a mile from town. It's small, soot-black, and smells like old smoke and forgotten conversations. You sweep out a corner with a pine branch and call it home. It's not awful. You drink from a stream. You steal eggs from a very confused chicken coop nearby. Just once, carefully, politely, like the chicken might report you. You sleep better out here. No crowds, no dogs, no stocks, just wind and leaves and the occasional owl reminding you how loud your stomach is. Historians still argue whether medieval woods were safer or more dangerous than cities. There were outlaws, sure, and wolves, and bandits with worse manners than you. But there were also fewer people to recognize your face, and fewer rules. You build a fire. Badly. You hum to yourself. You try not to think. It works. Mostly. Until one afternoon, 3 days in, you hear voices, not nearby, but close enough. You duck behind a tree and listen. 2 men, talking about something they found near the river, a body maybe. Or someone who should have been a body. The bailiff's name comes up, and yours. They don't say it like it's a secret anymore. They say it like it's a story. The thief who vanished. You smile in spite of yourself. There's something almost legendary about being spoken of when you're not around. But legends don't eat. And you're down to half an egg and a pine cone. You'll have to go back soon. Maybe at night. Maybe in disguise. Maybe you stop yourself. Too many maybes. You rest your head against the bark and close your eyes. The forest rustles. You're not safe. But you're not caught. Yet. 3 more days pass in the forest. You get better at foraging, sort of. You find berries that don't make your tongue tingle, a definite improvement, and learn how to shake hazelnuts from a squirrel's forgotten hoard without getting clawed in the face. You miss bread. You miss noise too. Not the yelling or the guards or the gossip, but the background hum of life. Footsteps, distant bells, the creak of carts, and the hollow clatter of market chatter. Out here, every sound feels like a decision, a branch snapping, a bird warning its friends, a breath that wasn't yours. You can't shake the feeling that you're being watched. At night, the trees shift and whisper. You hear the crackle of leaves. You tell yourself it's just animals. That the town doesn't care enough to send someone after a thief with nothing left to steal. But that doesn't stop your ears from tuning to every crunch of the underbrush. There's a fringe belief among forest folk that thieves who hide too long become part of the woods. Moss grows in their mouths, roots tangle in their dreams, and eventually they forget their own names. You scoff at that. But you do wonder, if you stayed here long enough, would you even go back? You lie awake with that thought curling around your ribs. Historians still argue whether medieval forests were places of refuge or of exile. For you, they're both. A sanctuary and a prison. The trees don't judge, but they also don't feed you well. And eventually, the woods make a decision for you. It rains. Not a polite mist or a passing drizzle. No. This is the kind of rain that turns trails into rivers and leaves into sodden blankets. Your hut leaks. Your fire dies. Your cloak clings like seaweed. You hold out for hours, but hunger and wet socks are undefeated foes. You trudge back toward town in the dark. The road is quieter than you remember. You move like a shadow, avoiding every torch and window, slipping past the mill and through the broken fence near the tanner's shed. You reach your bolt hole just before dawn. It's colder, wetter, moldier, but it's familiar. You collapse on the floor and breathe in mildew like it's perfume. You've made it back. You're not caught. You're still not safe. But you're here. And in your world, that counts as a win. You spend the next day lying still, wrapped in your damp cloak, listening to the town go on without you. Feet shuffle past your hideout. Carts rattle down the lane. Someone drops a bucket and curses. Life moves on, and you're back in the middle of it, invisible once again. No one knocks. No one calls your name. Either they've forgotten you, or they've decided you're not worth the trouble. You're not sure which feels worse. You've been gone almost a week, but everything looks the same. The same crooked shutters, the same creaky inn sign, the same dog barking like it owns the square. But you've changed. Just a little, enough to feel out of place. The rain has scrubbed the streets clean, at least for a while. Even the usual stink of fish and sweat is milder now, like the town has taken a bath it didn't ask for. You risk a walk, not to steal, just to breathe. You hug the walls, moving like fog, and make it to the chapel steps. The same old priest nods at you as he sweeps the doorway. You nod back. Nothing more, but that small exchange plants something warm in your chest. You sit on the chapel's back stoop and chew on a crust someone left behind. Maybe it was meant for the birds. Too bad. Today you're the bird. There's a fringe belief that chapel steps are lucky, especially for the desperate. Sit long enough, and your fortunes turn. No one knows who started that rumor, but people believe it anyway. Even you, a little. Historians still argue whether the church's role in poor relief was genuine compassion or calculated control. They handed out bread, yes, but they also kept records. They forgave sins, sure, but they whispered names. You've seen both sides. One hand gives, the other reports. A boy passes you with a basket of laundry. He doesn't flinch, doesn't point, doesn't shout. That's how you know things are shifting. Maybe they really have forgotten. Or maybe you just look too tired to matter anymore. You drift down the alley behind the baker's shop. He's chopping wood in the back, muttering to himself, distracted. His loaves sit in a basket by the window, one of them too close to the edge. You could take it. No one's watching. Your stomach growls. But you don't move, not this time. Instead, you sit down across from the bakery door and watch the sunrise turn the chimney smoke gold. Because sometimes, survival isn't about grabbing more. Sometimes, it's just about holding on to less. You stand after a while, walk away empty-handed, but not empty-hearted. You decide to go home. Not your bolt hole. Not the hut in the woods. Home. The crooked little house on the east side of the square where you used to live before everything fell apart. Before your father disappeared into someone else's war, and your mother started counting every crust. Before the looks changed from pity to suspicion. The sun's barely up when you reach the old lane. You walk slowly, like someone retracing a dream. The door is still there, painted a color that might have been cheerful once. The shutters hang like tired eyelids. You hesitate. Then knock. No answer. You knock again, just once, light, like you're asking permission to exist. The shutter creaks. A face appears. Your cousin. She looks older, taller, sharper, but she still has that same frown, like she's permanently sniffing something sour. She stares at you for a full heartbeat, then slams the shutter closed. You hear voices inside, whispers, a hurried movement. The sound of a bolt sliding into place. You don't knock again. There's a fringe belief that thieves can never return home, not because they're unwelcome, but because once you've taken from others, the world starts taking back from you. You didn't used to believe that. You do now. You sit on the stoop anyway, just for a bit, just to rest. You stare at the cracked cobblestones, tracing the lines like old maps. You used to play jacks here. You used to laugh here. Once, you swore you'd grow up and leave this place behind. And now, here you are, chased back by hunger and shadows. Historians still argue whether medieval families truly disowned their own over petty crime, or whether those stories were exaggerated by record keepers who never missed a chance to moralize. But your mother isn't in the doorway, and no one offers you bread. You're a ghost, and ghosts don't get welcomed back. You rise slowly. The joints in your knees crack like old wood. As you walk away, a child peeks from behind the curtain. You catch their eyes just for a second, then they vanish. Maybe they'll remember you as a cautionary tale. Or maybe not at all. Either way, you're gone. You pass a group of men unloading sacks near the mill. One of them spits in the dirt when he sees you. Another looks away. You don't blame them. You're the warning, the story they tell their sons at bedtime. Be good, or you'll end up like that one. You're not even sure what that one means anymore. You wander for hours, not with purpose exactly, just with the kind of movement that happens when stopping feels too close to giving up. You skirt the market, dodge the fish stalls, avoid the square like it owes you money. You walk the long edge of the town wall, tracing your finger along the mortar, as if the stones might remember you better than people do. You pass the place where Wilfred lost his fingers. The whipping post is gone now, replaced by a chipped water barrel. But you can still hear the sound, that hollow gasp. It echoes inside your chest sometimes, when everything is too quiet. You stop by the river. Sit on the cold stone wall. Watch the water do what it always does, move, relentlessly, indifferently, like it doesn't care who drinks from it or who drowns in it. You toss a pebble in, one of your three, the one shaped like a bird's skull. Gone. Maybe for luck, maybe just because you needed to let something go. There's a fringe belief that throwing a stone into moving water releases a burden. You never believed it before. Now, you hope it's true. You lean back and watch a dog chase its own tail near the bridge. For a moment, the world feels ordinary, almost kind. Then you hear it, footsteps, quick, heavy, coming your way. You turn. It's the bailiff, and he's not alone. 3 men, same cudgels, same look. But this time, something's different. They're not walking toward you. They're dragging someone else. It's the neighbor's kid, the loud one. His eyes are wide. He's crying. You freeze. The bailiff sees you. You expect him to shout, to sneer, to point. He doesn't. He just nods. Once. Then they vanish up the road. You sit still for a long time. Long enough to wonder what you just saw. What the kid did. What the bailiff meant. Historians still argue whether medieval justice had any consistency at all, whether power was about law or about convenience. Maybe someone finally had enough of that boy's mouth, or maybe he tried to copy you and failed. You don't feel proud, you don't feel relieved, you feel tired. So you walk again, back through alleys you know too well, past doors that will never open to you again, back to your bolt hole. You light a stub of wax, watch it flicker. You pick up your last pebble, the one shaped like a tiny heart. You hold it in your palm until it's warm. And for the first time in weeks, you let yourself believe that maybe you'll survive this. Not thrive, not rise, just survive. That's enough. For now, you wake to birdsong. Not the melodic kind. This is the frantic, slightly off-key squawking of pigeons fighting over a crust just outside your hideout. It's not pretty, but it's a start. The first sound in days that hasn't carried the weight of warning. You stretch, bones popping like kindling, and step out into a morning that feels just a little less sharp. The market smells of spice bread and stale fish again. Nothing new, but something familiar. The kind of scent that says, you've survived long enough to smell this one more time. You walk toward the fountain. Not to steal, not to beg, just to exist. A washerwoman glances up from her bucket and doesn't flinch when she sees you. That's new. A baker's apprentice doesn't cross the street. A merchant doesn't shout. You realize something. You've faded. Not in spirit, but in memory. You've become part of the scenery again, just another figure drifting through the town's edges. Suspicious, maybe, but not urgent, not worth chasing. It's the best kind of invisibility. There's a fringe belief, an old one, that thieves who go unseen long enough turn into fog at dawn. It's meant as a warning. But you like the idea that maybe fading means freedom. Historians still argue whether fading from the record was a blessing or a curse. After all, to vanish from history is to escape judgment, but also legacy. You sit by the well and eat the last of your hoarded bread. It's hard enough to chip a tooth, but you eat it anyway. Slowly, like it's a feast. A child walks by with her mother. She drops a ribbon. You pick it up, hold it in your palm. You could keep it, sell it, trade it, but you don't. You catch up and return it. The girl stares at you like you've just done magic. Her mother mumbles thanks, pulls her away. You go back to your seat. You don't smile, but you don't scowl either. You just sit, warmed by a sliver of sun, a dry stone step, and the knowledge that for the first time in a long while, you chose not to steal. Not because you were watched. Not because you were too slow. Because you didn't have to. The town buzzes around you, full of secrets and sausages and sandals and saints. And you are still here. Still unnamed. Still uncaught. Still unbroken. Still you. The light softens as the sun begins its slow descent behind the town's patchwork rooftops. The shadows stretch, long and gentle, casting the alleyways in a warm hush. The smell of baked bread gives way to the scent of cooling stone, and somewhere a lute begins to play, faint, hesitant notes drifting from an open window. You curl beneath your threadbare cloak, the last rays of daylight touching your cheeks like a whispered blessing. The breeze brushes past you, no longer sharp, but comforting. You hear the soft splash of water in the fountain. A dog sighs in its sleep nearby. The world quiets. You think of the ribbon in the girl's hand, the one thing you returned, the one decision that was entirely yours, and in that small act, in this soft hour, you begin to believe that maybe, even here, even now, a thief can still carry a bit of grace. You let your eyes close. Let the candle of thought burn down to its last flicker. And as sleep rises, slow and sure, the city fades into a velvet hush,